Welcome friends to 2 Cents Wanted. In today's video we are doing the Arrancar arc fix video, and we're going to fix the first third of it, the invasion arc. Now I want to start with, I honestly thought I was going to be changing a whole bunch of stuff and going crazy with a lot of these, but after reading it, I actually think this is one of Kubo's better writing efforts. Everything in this first initial part of this arc is just to set up everything else later, and it does it pretty well. There are just some things that I feel need to be tweaked a bit. So first we're going to start off with the honorable mention, and that's Ichigo kills Grand Fisher. Now I don't necessarily disagree with this sentiment, but at the same time I get why Kubo didn't do it this way, because killing Grand Fisher here would be something very emotionally impactful for Ichigo, and having it the start of the Arrancar arc after we just came down from the Soul Society arc feels a bit tonally weird. Yet at the same time, Isshin doing it also works because Masaki was his wife. Isshin kind of ruins it though by saying, hollows are going to do what hollows do, so it's not really about revenge, but it was still good. Ichigo would have been much more emotionally impactful, but Kubo did a good job of kind of subverting us wanting Grand Fisher dead with the reveal that Isshin can actually kill Grand Fisher. Kubo did something masterful by taking something we all wanted and being able to just shove it under the rug by giving us something just as explosive and shocking. So these next 5 fixes are going to be ones that are actual fixes and not honorable mentions. First, I'm going to start with Ikkaku. And what I'm changing is Ikkaku's Bankai won't break. Yet, at least. The reason I say this is because I think making Ikkaku's Bankai break, just like his Shikai does all the time, doesn't do well for the character. I know it's typical Kubo style to have characters flame out, as in have one great moment where they show everything and that's the last we get of them. I just think one last Bankai appearance should be done later for this character. I wouldn't even mind it in the same arc, like breaking it against Choneng Pao or in the Thousand Year Blood War, but not against Eterod. Eterod is deserving of a Bankai death. He's a cool short-lived character, but breaking Ikkaku's Bankai to show off his Arrancar strength just wasn't the move in my opinion. I get not every character can get shine, but this is just something I thought was bad for Ikkaku's character, especially going forward. At number 2, we have Yasutora Sado, Chad. The main issue I think with Chad in the Arrancar arc in general isn't just the fact he feels forgotten, but his power seems to stagnate heavy. There may be an explanation for this, but I think it's a bad move regardless to have Chad be as weak as he is. Looking back at the Soul Society arc, Chad's hype is boundless. Chad folded a third seat with one regular punch, and not an energy blast. He washed through Soul Weepers with no effort, bending and breaking Zanpakuto on his skin, while Ichigo and Ganju ran most of the time. Ichigo, after fighting Renji, wasn't convinced anyone could defeat Chad. I mean, look at the man's face. Ichigo even acknowledges that the other lieutenants may be as strong as Renji, so that's the measure Ichigo is using while he's talking about Chad not losing. He said this while fighting Kenpachi, and sensing Chad lose to Shinsui. Not to mention earlier we see how much raw Ryatsu Chad had. There was no way he wasn't at the very least base lieutenant level. So when he loses to Yami and Espada in the opening of the Arrancar arc, I'm okay with that. Yami and Ulquiorra showing up felt like Nappa and Vegeta, so I wouldn't expect him to show up and decimate either of them. But losing to D-Roy isn't so palatable. D-Roy gets one shot by Rukia's Shikai. Not that Rukia is weak, but saying that Chad was about to get one-shot blitzed by D-Roy was ridiculously disappointing. I get that Chad's arm wasn't fully healed yet, and that Kubo wanted to drive home Chad feeling like Ichigo has left him behind and that he doesn't see him as an equal, and that it was supposed to be the fuel for Chad to get stronger while also driving up the impending feeling of isolation from Ichigo and Ichigo to everyone else. But having Chad get embarrassed by someone who is barely lieutenant level was so weird to me. I think a simple fix for this part is 2 things. First, have Chad battle D-Roy a little bit. Chad doesn't even have to land a punch, but don't show Chad massively outmatched. Then have Chad flinch because his arm wasn't fully healed yet, and D-Roy uses it to try and kill him by blitzing him. And now you can have the Ichigo scene play out the exact same way it did in the manga, and you still get Chad feeling inferior and Ichigo being insensitive to his best friend. Then the second fix. For Chad, I would add a wrinkle into Chad's full bring. It's simple too. Anytime Chad defeats a hollow, instead of them just being defeated, I would have it consume or absorb a portion of that hollow's soul, enhancing Chad's growth. That way later, when Chad goes to ask Kisuke for help, and he makes Chad train with Renji's Bankai, it's not just because he thinks it would make him stronger. He doesn't want Chad hunting hollows and becoming stronger using that method. Kisuke notes in the manga that Chad's powers are more in line with that of a hollow. And if his powers are consuming souls like a hollow would, be bad. He doesn't know yet how bad, but he doesn't want to test it, especially with everything going on at the time. I think these two small changes are sufficient for setting Chad up for better success later, while not going overboard. I'll talk about what I think Kubo used as inspiration for Chad's full bring in another video or part 2 of this one. Hint, it has something to do with mythology and Ichigo himself. Number 3, set up Orihime's power advancements. Now this one may seem weird, but Orihime has some very large power jumps in the Bleach series, and as far as training goes, we see it just 2 times. And we actually don't see anything or how she improves specifically. Orihime actually has another change similar to this that will be coming in the next video. But essentially, what disappoints me is the hype around Orihime's power, and we don't see her train at all. It's partially a bait and switch from Kubo. All of us are supposed to focus on Orihime and how to get her back so Aizen can't use or hurt her. And while we're all focused on Hueco Mundo, he's jumping to Karakura Town, trapping some of the more powerful characters in Hueco Mundo. But Orihime gets a bit lost in the shuffle. And for some people that may be a good thing, but personally this bothered me. How quickly the Karakura gang gets phased out. So the fix here is to actually give us Orihime training. And I don't mean showing her powering up against Rukia. I mean genuinely showing her trying to figure out her powers. Show Rukia and Orihime conversating about her power and how they work. I'd rather learn about how her powers work this way than having Aizen explain it. I'd rather have this than the conversation that takes place between Jushiro and Shuhei. Have Rukia ask Orihime if she can reflect powers, and have Orihime say she doesn't think so, and then Orihime, not being able to really help herself, starts going off on a tangent as she normally does about how maybe she could turn Tsubaki into a bow and arrow like Uryu. Clearly, what I'm trying to set up here is the future ability she uses against Kugo Ginjo by reflecting his attack back on him by using Tsubaki. Rukia would get her to focus again, and Rukia would release her Shikai and physically train her by teaching her how to fight against enemies with different attacks. It doesn't have to be long, just short intervals of actually showing her training. I'm still okay with Orihime being kidnapped because it gets certain characters into Hueco Mundo and it sets up all the hype like I said. But we're going to be moving on to number 4. Honestly, this one is short and sweet. Wonder Weiss is now the Cero Espada. I'm dropping this here because it won't be revealed until later. This is like technically in my canon timeline of this version of the story. The actual reveal of the Cero Espada won't happen until much later. When Yami and Toshiro clash, they tell each other that they are the 10s of their respective groups like they did in the manga, but Yami will correct Toshiro about the numbers and joke that things have changed a lot recently as far as numbers go. Not just referring to Luffy, but Wonder Weiss as well. Don't worry, I have something planned for Yami's numbers as well. On to number 5. Toshiro Hitsugaya. Finally, we have Toshiro Hitsugaya. I'm changing Toshiro's power because, frankly, it's BS. And by power, I mean his power level. This may come off as Toshiro slander, but I promise it's coming from a good place. Toshiro has no right winning in his fight against Haribel. 0. I don't care that he has a hacks advantage over her, and I know what you're thinking, why are you bringing up FKT when we're still in the early invasion? And that's because Toshiro's power jump from here to FKT is nonsense. Let's look at Toshiro's fight against Luffy and Yami. I'll leave Xiaolong out because Gentai Kaijo. Luffy absolutely manhandled Toshiro, and Gentai Kaijo was off already. Yami was going to manhandle Toshiro if Luffy didn't jump in. Toshiro's ice did nothing to Yami, didn't even make him cold, and then Luffy proceeded to go res and blast his Bankai, which he defended initially, but then got blitzed and knocked out of the sky. And Toshiro was down for a while. Luffy could have finished him off, and Toshiro admits as much, but that isn't my problem. My problem is from this fight to Haribel, only a couple days at most have passed. Orihime was kidnapped during this fight. And then Tatsuki lets us know that the next day is when Ichigo leaves for Hueco Mundo. Ichigo and the gang were not in Hueco Mundo for a month or more to give Toshiro enough time to climb from getting decimated by the Sexta Espada, who may or may not have actually been that strong, to staying alive against Haribel. No way. What's worse is Toshiro had time to set up a powerful ice move, in Bankai no less, that doesn't even kill Luffy when he hits him with it. I simply want to change how this fight goes. If you want me to believe that Toshiro can fight Haribel, even a little bit, then at least make it a back and forth between Toshiro and Luffy. Toshiro doesn't have to win or even dominate the fight. Just show me that he isn't fodder. It'd be preferable if he dominated against Luffy, but it's not needed. Toshiro gets dunked on enough by Aizen. I don't need Luffy doing it too. Just have Toshiro fight Luffy. The lieutenants will then fight Yami, and Kisuke handles Wonder Weiss. This also boosts Wonder Weiss for later when we see what he can actually do. This way, the lieutenants also get their shine, and if they effectively hold off Yami, Yami would get pissed, and this would explain why he goes back to Hueco Mundo and starts storing power, because the two new guys got to fight captains while he got to basically get scraps. It sort of all fixes itself once you change how Luffy and Toshiro interact. To make it even better, have Luffy and Toshiro just take each other out. If anything, Toshiro gets his Zenkai boost from coming close to death. That way, it would make a bit more sense why he's closer to the third spot. I personally don't care how you show it, just don't have Toshiro get essentially one-shot by Luffy. Thank you guys for watching. I know you guys really like the fixing videos. They get tons of views on this channel. I really hope you like my fixes for this one. The next one's going to take a bit because it's a much longer arc, so just be patient with me, guys. The next video I think you guys are going to like, so please remember, like, subscribe, guys. Have a good day. Bye.